Who brought this to the backlog? Was it me?
It's
For
your
you?
game. It was your game, yeah. Hmm.
I couldn't remember because I know we did like I looked on your list and you looked on mine, I think. So all right, you want to jump into it?
Yeah, just what proceeding? What is the word after proceed? Afterwards. Is it proceed? Succeeding?
Per, I think it would
After
technically be
their
proceeding.
success. That's
Yeah.
good. I'll just talk like I talk. I'm not gonna sound smart. I'm not a smart guy.
Three, two, one. Backlog.
Did you see there's a new season of Sweet Tooth?
What is Sweet Tooth?
The show on Netflix with the little boy that's like half deer.
That was called
It's
Sweet Tooth?
Yeah, but you liked it.
I never saw it.
You didn't see it?
No, there was one where it was like this kid deer or something, like half deer, and I thought it was called something different.
It's
It
called
looked
Sweet Tooth
weird.
because he's like addicted. He loves eating sweet stuff, and then he gets like this big. There's like a big dude that helps him, who like he hunts them, but he ends up helping them for some reason because he can
Oh,
talk. You watched it,
interesting.
right?
I did not watch it.
You would love it, dude. You would love the show. You need to watch it. Ending podcast. Go watch the show. I feel like you'd really like that show. I feel like it's an Alec show for sure.
Yeah, I'm gonna write it down right now.
Yeah, it's like post-apocalypse and stuff, and these
Ooh,
kids were born half animal or something like that, and they all this started around the time everyone started getting sick and dying, I guess. So they were
right.
blamed for it, and
Interesting.
yeah, so there's people that hunt them, I think, for specific reasons that they reveal in the show. But yeah, there's like a kid who is half deer or something like that, and a guy finds him. It's a really good show.
Yeah.
It was good, man. I think you'll like it. I can't believe you haven't seen it. I feel like we talked about it and you said you liked it, but
I think my wife tried watching it or did watch it, and maybe I came by the room or something while she was watching it. I'm not 100%.
yeah.
But you said it's on Netflix?
Yep. It just second season just came out, so
I am writing it down right now.
put it in the show notes. You'll love it.
Other than that,
And if you hate it, I'm sorry, but I think you will like it. Every once in a while, a show or a movie or a game or something comes out, and I feel like it's something that I want you to play it or watch it. God of War is another one.
we can do a subsection of our podcast where it's movies and TV backlogs.
Well, I did think about it too. I thought about we could do extra stuff,
hmm
starting at 30 minutes my ass. I thought we could do extra stuff like movie reviews if there's something kind of game related. Like the Mario movie just came out, and I want to watch it, and I want to talk to you about it too because
Oh yeah.
I don't
Well,
want to turn it into a homework project because I want to enjoy it too. But
no, it is interesting though. I know on your backlog you have the Metro, what is it, 2033
hmm
game, and I believe there's three or four games, but they were adapted from a series of books.
didn't know that.
I didn't know that either, but there was another podcast. What was their name?
Nope.
Anyway, another podcast that talked about them, and they went through and actually read, I think, the first book of the series, and then went through and played some of the game and kind of compared the differences. So it's definitely a thought. See, I'm a with movies and other forms of entertainment, and sometimes games. I think mostly because I have a 7-year-old now. It's hard to break away to do some of these entertaining things. So I'm pretty basic
Oh man, it's
on
tough.
on my I'm pretty basic on my entertainment consumption.
Yeah.
Big Marvel guy that's just easy. I pick one game that I like playing every year. It's the Assassin's Creed. They're mostly coming out every year, so that's like the one thing I put
hmm
pre-podcast. I put all my energy towards. So it's definitely have to kind of treat it like the backlog for our games is definitely open it up to more things.
Dude, I'll just, as a side note on that, it's kind of been crazy how I want to play games now.
hmm
I feel like I was kind of starting to not enjoy games very much, and the reason was because I've only played games when they were multiplayer and competitive multiplayer type games with my friends only.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've really kind of I feel like I'm kind of getting back into playing games, and I'm more excited to play them now than it's crazy to me, because I was, I feel like 6 months ago I probably would have told somebody, if they asked, I probably would have said like, yeah, I play games occasionally, but I don't really, I don't consider myself a gamer. But I feel like now, like I'm excited. If I'm not tired before I go to bed, I'm very excited to play games at the end of the day. So it's weird. It's cool how that's
awesome.
working, because it's bringing enjoyment in something that I feel like has always been pretty important. But
Well, you were telling me earlier about another byproduct of this little project of ours is, as we're knocking games off of our backlogs, I believe you've added a few.
Yeah, man. I know. I know. I'm supposed to get rid of the backlog, and it's growing faster, but there's been a lot of good sales lately. I think maybe with the Steam Deck being very popular, there's a lot of buzz around the new Asus thing coming out at some point. I've added a total of 5 games to my backlog since we even started the conception of this. So I don't know, man. But that's good. It's more content for you guys, more content for everybody, more content for me.
I haven't gone out and bought any games, but I have added, I think, 2. They were free games off of the Epic game launcher.
Oh, I mean, we're not. I'm saying I purchased games. I don't know how many I've gotten. There's even some on GOG that I've gotten from there was a free Amazon thing. There was one that was a bigger title, but I don't remember what it was. That's how bad it gets. I wonder what now I want to know, because some of them were decent, man.
All right, well, hey, you want to talk about this week's game?
If I don't figure out what game it was, I'm not going to be able to move forward. So just give me a second, and I'm sorry. And I'm telling you, there's no way. It was Wolfenstein: The New Order. It's free on Amazon right now. If you have a Prime account, which you do, you better. Consumers.
I do. I do.
You slimy, sweaty consumers. Get in there. Get your free copy of Wolfenstein: The New Order from GOG.com, Amazon Prime member exclusive.
How long is it available? Because this won't come out for
5 days.
Another month and a half.
It takes 5 days before, and it's a 12 to 11 hour game. So if you missed it, yes, you screwed up. You're not really the target audience, are you? You're not really keeping up with building your own backlog, which this is about.
Oh, let's see.
I want to get into
how does Amazon work for games? Wolfenstein?
A lot of them, I think they're codes for other games or for other launchers. I know GOG.com, they do like a DRM free version of games, I think is what they were originally kind of based off of. I know that's how Wolfenstein New Order came about on there. That's how you acquire it. So, man, I just added another game to my wish list. Here we go.
Well, because I think Wolfenstein's on my list, so I gotta find.
You own it or something?
No, I think it's on a game that I want to play.
Oh yeah, I grew up playing the Wolfenstein Return to Castle Wolfenstein game. It was like one of the first FPS games that felt very big and expansive and modern to me. My sister had it on her computer, and I just remember it was very challenging, and didn't feel like GoldenEye, where it's kind of felt, to me, GoldenEye kind of felt linear. This game felt really open. There was a level where you had to sneak around, and it felt kind of that horror graphic kind of stuff that you would expect from a more mature game. It wasn't just secret agent guy. So I was kind of excited to see that, and so I hold it very fondly in my heartstrings. Oh man, there's a game made by the same company. It's coming out, made by the same company. We'll talk about it later, but it's called The Lost Wild, and it's like a survival horror adventure game with dinosaurs. So get ready.
Get ready. Welcome back, everybody, to 321 Backlog. Today we're talking about Stray.
That's right. I'm James T, and this is Alec L, and we've both played Stray this week on Steam. So we're going to be talking about that. I hope everybody's playing along, and we get to experience this a little bit together. There are going to be some spoilers ahead, but we'll just discuss some aspects of the game prior, and then we don't want to spoil this wonderful game for anybody. So
Yeah, we're gonna try and do. We're gonna try. We'll see how it ends up coming out. We're gonna try and do a little general discussion and maybe get into some spoiler stuff. If we get into that, we'll definitely put a like a spoiler wall, just to give you guys a heads up, and we'll see how it goes.
Okay, so this game came out July 19th of 2022. It was made by Blue 12 Studio and Annapurna Interactive, which sounds kind of cat-like. It was released on PlayStation 4 and 5, as every game was, I guess, at that time, with the shortages of PS5, and Microsoft Windows, which I guess would probably include Xbox and obviously PC. And we both played it on PC or Steam, right?
Yeah, I played it on Steam.
You played it actually on a computer.
Yes, well, on a computer with a controller.
Yeah, and I played it using my Steam Deck exclusively, but I did dock it occasionally and play with a controller on the TV, but I guess it kind of functions the same way, basically. It did say that it was recommended to be played with a controller in the beginning of the game. There's like a little disclaimer on it, so... And you did that, I guess. I'm sure it would function just fine with mouse and keyboard.
Now, I had already played this game before. This was actually on your backlog. I kind of picked it for you, knowing I had played it already. My initial playthrough, I did mouse and keyboard. And thinking back, I definitely recommend using the controller if possible.
Do you remember? Is it just the controller style? Oh, I'm sorry. The mouse is the camera and the WASD.
Yeah, it's definitely you're using the mouse to look around.
Okay.
And I've never been good with these types of games with a mouse and keyboard. I've grown up using the controllers for the majority of my gaming career. Yeah. That is just so much easier to use that, and my brain has been wired to know controllers versus keyboards for anything other than just typing. So I for me, it was definitely a better experience playing with a controller.
That's cool. Yeah, I feel like I'm generally a little bit better with mouse and keyboard, but I'm kind of looking forward to getting more into using a controller again because it's been a long time since I played console-style games. But this is kind of a good introduction to kind of getting back into that. I guess it's not a super tough game for me, but So why did you get this game? I want to know why you were the first one to play it. What made you think I want to get the cat game?
Actually, it was for my work. I travel a lot, and I get to meet a lot of people throughout the country. And I was working with a group. I was working with a group of customers that were themselves gamers, and we were kind of in some downtime, maybe on our lunch break. We were talking about just things that we had played and kind of doing the icebreakers of meeting new people in like a working environment. And somebody had said, "Hey, have you seen the Stray game coming out?" And I hadn't heard of it. And he started going through just the general what it is, and it seems so goofy that I had to kind of go and check it out. And then after finding it and seeing how it is, you are controlling a cat and going through a lost to time city full of robots and some other things that we'll talk about. It just sounds so far-fetched. I was like, I have to check this out. And when you go and look at it on all the store pages and all over the internet, the screen grabs and screenshots and gameplays of this game just look so polished and detailed that you can't say no to it. And that was my first introduction into it. So it was just from a pleasant conversation with some coworkers, and that's where I started with it.
And just to be clear, you don't consider yourself a cat person, right?
No, not really. I mean, cats are fine. Okay. I've always,
Well, that's like one thing I've heard a lot of people that said that this game wasn't for them, and they said that they're not cat people, and this game was made just for cat people. I don't know if you've read that or heard that anywhere, but I feel like it's a good game either way. But
Yeah, I don't think if you're see, I don't think the cat portion is the biggest part. It's a big part of the game because that's what you're playing as. But the gameplay experience, the fact that it's a cat, I don't think detracts from anything. I still think it's still fun regardless.
yeah, I would agree with that. I feel like the environment and stuff was immersive enough. Being it's kind of a post-apocalyptic looking environment. I feel like that
Mhm.
alone, just experiencing the game, whether you're a cat person or not, maybe you'll like cats better after you play this game. I don't
Yeah,
know.
I don't think playing this as a dog would have landed the same because you are through different portions of the game. There is a bit of a stealthing element. There's a bit of a um, needing to be a bit more agile in spots, and I don't think it would have translated as well to a different animal.
Oh yeah,
You know,
I don't think the platforming would have went well at all,
no, not at all.
unless maybe a orangutan or a
Maybe
chimpanzee would probably do pretty well with a lot of it.
might be a bit too big, but yeah, it'd be dexterous
Yeah,
enough.
maybe a small tamaran. I don't know. A small monkey. I don't even know what that is. So yeah, this game was a 10 out of 10 on Steam. When I just typed it in on Google to try to get some of the general information, I saw it was a 10 out of 10 on Steam. I thought that was kind of funny. It had a overwhelmingly positive 100,000 plus reviews of people saying overwhelmingly positive. So I knew I was in for either a very divisive opinion or I was just gonna like I have to like the game. So
I agree with it. I'm very bad about going back and reviewing things, but I would have given it another 10 out of 10. It's such a
dang
good
man,
game.
perfect
Both
game.
both playthroughs, and a little bit of watching my son play through it because he played a little bit. He
Oh yeah,
got
my
stuck in
wife
some
played it
spots.
some too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and aside from getting stuck, he really enjoyed it. Um, so it's a game for everybody.
And that's one of the things I wanted to talk about. I feel like it was a very accessible game. It was the platforming wasn't crazy. You have the ability to turn off prompts. I don't know if you saw that in the menus and settings. You could turn the prompts off so it doesn't say press A or X to jump here.
Oh, I did not see that, but that I think if I was to play it again, I may turn those
Yeah,
off.
just so it makes it a little more, yeah, a little bit less obvious of where to go. I kept it on just because sometimes the camera was a little bit, it was like, you weren't exactly seeing when you were looking up. I know, not going to get too heavy into the gameplay, but if you were trying to evade something, you're kind of in a hurry, it would be helpful to have the prompts for that.
Hmm.
The
But that
dialogue, what's up?
I think with those tooltips, they were simple enough if you learn them real quick because it was really just joysticks for movement and then A for jumping, and I think there was maybe an interact with like Y. Past that, once you learn those controls, they're pretty easy to commit to memory for a controller at least. You could definitely turn those off and then play through without much interaction from any like UI.
You're forgetting a pretty pivotal, very, I would consider it important button you'd have to press to interact with the environment and stuff. It was on my controller. It was O to meow.
I
Talking at we're
think for
talking.
my controller, it was Y, but
Oh,
yes,
okay.
that was very very fun.
Yeah, I know I don't want to like spoil a lot, but you can meow in this game, and I think that's a pretty big deal for a lot of people.
Mm. No, definitely. When you start out the game doing very just general cat stuff, moving around,
Dude, that was
uh,
like I mean, that was my favorite part of the game, man.
you're going around trying to with your little cat family and snuggling up with them, and there's parts where you're just going around scratching on a post or
Drinking the water.
drink
Yeah.
drinking out of water and all that. So there are but all throughout the game, not just this one portion before the story takes place, but all throughout the game there are kind of like breaking points where you can stop and let the cat be a cat, you know finding a nice comfy pillow or a lap of some of the npcs to just sit, maybe have a coffee break, or you get a couple screenshots that are really
Yeah.
really showcasing the style and atmosphere of this game.
Yeah, there was a couple times where there's like musical element to the game a little bit, kind of a side quest, and when the music plays in it, a lot of the time you can just lay down. There's like a blanket there, so you can just lay down, or I guess it's a pillow or a blanket or something, but you can just lay down and listen to it and just enjoy it and just be a cat. Because it seems like something a
Yeah.
cat would really do. If you're just busy and you're not paying attention to it, they would just lay down near you for when you're done and ready for just scratch them.
Yeah, I also had a couple times where if I needed to maybe step away from the computer, but I couldn't, maybe I've just forgot to pause or I wasn't in a spot where I needed to like make sure I was safe.
Yeah.
If you just sit there for a moment and there's inactivity from your controller, the cat will start to like stretch
Do cat
and move
stuff.
around
Yeah.
and do cat stuff, you know. So even in those times where you're not playing, the game is still keeping that idea of like your character is a cat and that just does stuff to, be a cat. And it was real fun.
They used a real cat for this. Wasn't they used a cat for the motion capture in the game? A real cat. Did you see that? Did you happen to know that?
I didn't, but I'm not surprised.
Yeah, this might be surprising, but also makes sense. It was a hairless cat that they used.
Oh, interesting.
But think about that, because with motion capture, they probably put, I don't know for sure, but I would assume they put those little white beads things on them that they use to motion capture. And I feel like
Right.
it would be a lot easier if the cat didn't have a lot of fur.
Yep. Yes,
So
it would. Because I'm sure, and I saw this in your notes, but if you try to put like a harness or a bodysuit on a cat, it would probably not enjoy that much.
so I've done that. We have a cat, and she always wants to go outside, and that's why I
Yeah.
put it in the notes. There's a little more to piggyback off that story, but our cat always wants to go outside, but it's not a good idea for this cat to go outside because she's not an outside cat. So my wife bought a harness for the cat, and we'll take her on a little walk in the backyard and stuff like that. And I don't know how long you have to walk a cat on a harness where they stop walking in a crouch position, like they hate it. But every once in a while, she'll just bolt out the door into the grass, and she doesn't walk like that. So it's not the grass; it's 100% the harness that makes them crouch walk all the time.
Hmm.
And it was that moment in the game where I stopped it, and I just put the controller down and turned the game off. And I said, I need to come back to this game with my wife playing it because she's a cat person, and she's not a big gamer. But I knew this would be a game that she would probably finish without me
Yeah.
helping. So she's kind of been working on playing through that, which is fun too because I've already played through it, and now I can be there to kind of assist her in her journey if she needs it and encourage her.
Oh, yeah.
Us cat people got to stick together, man.
That's awesome.
So, okay, and I wanted to say about the meowing thing too. This is a thing I liked. Meowing, it's there. It doesn't seem like it really does anything initially. You're just meowing, and it's an option, and you can do it. But I like that eventually, when you get a little bit of story progression, it helps show you where to go. Did you notice that at all?
I didn't notice that. I noticed the level will tell you
Yeah.
where to go, and not
Yeah.
necessarily needing interaction from the cat. So I didn't notice a exact correlation from me doing cat stuff and then the level giving me stuff. But I just noticed the level would give you stuff regardless.
Yes, so every once in a while there'll be like a little puzzle that kind of stops you, and if you push the meow button or keybind, you meow, and the lights will flicker in a direction showing you where to go or try to give you a hint. This only happens initially to help you get a bearing on what the puzzles and obstacles will be. But yeah, so when I was just playing, I was just meowing all the time because it's cute or whatever. But then I started noticing, I put in our Discord, there's one screenshot where if you look, it lights up the letters H-E-L and P with some arrows on a sign.
Yeah.
That happens when you meow. It's all kinds of stuff like that. There's another obstacle where you have to jump a certain way to get somewhere, and there will be lights that light up around that object.
Yes.
And it becomes a little more obvious later on why those things are happening. And also, adorably, you end up, there's an achievement you can get called a little chatty if you meow, I think, 100 times, which sounds 100% like something old cat lady would say, like, "Oh, you're a little chatty this morning." I like that. I thought it was kind of, that's the kind of stuff that I think makes achievements cool. When someone like me, I don't care about achievements. I like stuff like that. So
yeah, I did not notice the meowing bit. I don't think I did it very often unless it was when you meet an NPC, I think they meow, but it's like you're not just doing it for the heck of it. You're trying to get their attention
Yeah.
rather. But as far as the level
Yeah.
kind of like lighting stuff up, I definitely saw in multiple occasions where, especially when you're doing those like fast running scenes, knowing like which path to take, the level would kind of help you without being too heavy handed. It would maybe light up,
Yeah.
you know, have a white light the side you're supposed to go in, but the other side would be dark, right? So not thinking about it quickly, you might
Yeah.
go on the wrong path, have to start over. But if you're paying attention to what the level is kind of cueing you into, you can kind of navigate through those little lit areas, which was pretty cool.
I feel like that comes down to me. That comes down to kind of good game
Oh
design
yeah.
in general, because that's I don't. I've said it before, and I'm gonna say it every day of my life. I don't like it when video games explicitly tell you what you need to do or how to do it. I want you to learn. I think it should, and if you can incorporate it seamlessly like that, in a way that just shows you or nudges you without having the. I always reference the stupid thing from Zelda screaming in your ear, telling you what to do.
Yeah, I think it's kind of part of that like that immersion, right? I mean, the more often it says, "Hey, go here," it's breaking you away from that immersion. And this game is really good about keeping you in the game.
Yeah, 100%. So you okay? So yeah, I think that's. Do you have anything else you want to say about it before we kind of get into spoilers? Is there anything?
Um, what was this AI was originally used to make art? What was that about?
That
Or
was
was
a
that?
that was that's later on in the game. That's one of the things that B12 mentions to you about
Oh,
how
okay,
yeah.
okay. Um,
Or maybe it was one of the robots, but yeah.
right,
On my
right.
notes, I think that's pretty much everything that is non-spoilery.
See, other than that, the one other thing I noticed about the gameplay is there are a lot of games like this that can bog you down with like optional quests and
Right.
things that are just filler, right? I only ever found two instances of purely optional stuff. Everything else was there for a reason, and you actually had to interact with different NPCs and other like buildings or rooms or puzzles to progress the story. There wasn't a bunch of like, hey, just do this just for the sake of that achievement or for the sake of
Right.
filling gameplay. And this isn't too much spoiler because they are optional, but there's in the first area you come to, there's finding sheet music, so one of the NPCs can perform music. Um, and the other one I found was farther in the one of the other levels, or we shouldn't say levels really. They're more like areas.
Yeah.
One of the other areas, I think it was called Ant Village. It was one of the central right when you leave your initial place. I think you have to go collect flowers for somebody.
Right. I
Outside
remember
of
that.
those, outside of those two, out of the entire game, nothing was optional. Meaning that it wasn't filler. It was actually part of the gameplay, and it didn't feel like it was needless. And I
Yeah.
really like that about this game. It kept you in the game for the game, not just to do a bunch of collectibles um and needless stuff just to buff that gameplay. So I really like that. I guess I guess there would be a third instance, but it was kind of part of the game, but kind of not. It was trying to help the secondary main character that you meet, trying to help them progress some story through memories. I don't think that gives too much away,
Oh yeah, yeah,
but there
that's
were a handful that were core to the game, and then
right.
a few that weren't for just some filler. But you could continue on without needing all those, and you still got a good feeling of what they were what story they were trying to portray.
Yeah, I feel like that kind of makes the game feel a little bit less open world and a little more linear.
Hmm.
But the fact that there are some side quest type things you can do, and the fact the game is sort of open, you can choose when to do some of them. I like
Hmm.
that in a game sometimes because it allows you to kind of get the focus stays on the game, where it's not like the game just opens up right from the start and you can just Some people love that. I like a little bit of linearity, in a game because it kind of keeps the game focused on the story, and I feel like you find that more in story-driven games, which I'm coming to see are kind of my preference. I think is a game that stays focused.
Yeah, as I get older, I definitely prefer story-driven games over like your first-person shooters like Call of Duty and Halo and stuff like that for like the multiplayer aspect.
Yeah,
I definitely have gravitated more towards story-driven games. And as
but
far as
yeah,
linear versus open world, I definitely think there is a time and a place for it. And in this
man,
instance, linear I think worked better,
yeah.
but it gave you just enough of an open world aspect to where you didn't feel like you were totally confined.
Dude, real life is open world enough, man. Like I could get in my car and I can just drive until I hit water, It's pretty open. It's the world I live in is more vast and expansive than Elden Ring and Skyrim put together. But yeah, I liked that aspect. I also feel like the game setting was kind of claustrophobic in a way intentionally. And I feel like if it was super open world, you would lose that feeling of claustrophobia, which I think kind of plays a big role in the story of the game as well.
Mhm.
So it's a really good style choice or design choice for the game, in my opinion.
Yeah, I thought it was fantastic.
That was a good point. I mean, I didn't really think too much. The side quests, the amount of them were good. That's true.
Mhm. So I think before we get into our spoiler section, and again for those listening, this is a little new for us. We're still trying to figure out, our formatting and all that. So we're giving this a try.
Yeah.
So before we get into our spoilers, thanks again for listening. That was our just general discussion on Stray. If you want to find us on social media, you can find us at 321 Backlog on all your platforms. And if you want to send us an email or connect with us that way, it is 321backlog@gmail.com. So here's our spoiler wall, and we'll continue on from that. But thank
You've
you.
been warned, okay? No complaining. And before we progress through this spoiler wall, I just want to say the next two games are going to be Ori and the Blind Forest Definitive Edition, as well as Bioshock. We'll be playing the remastered version. So if you don't want to go through the spoilers, at least you know going forward which games are coming up next. That's all.
All right, so now we're past our spoiler wall. We're not gonna go through a full walkthrough, but talking more candidly about our gameplay experience. We're gonna still mention NPCs and specifics to some puzzles and all that, but not worrying about spoilers and stuff like that. So
That's right. Yeah.
that's what we're gonna go into. So yeah, what is there a section in particular that you want to talk about first? I'd say probably the biggest section, the place that you're in the most, I think, is Dead City.
Yeah, for sure. Once you get through and you fall into the city and you've gotten done with the little, I guess, prologue tutorial learning how to be a cat, you get into the real environment of the game. It's the dark place. It's got robots, and it was definitely the most fleshed out city for me. It felt like you were there the longest. It felt like it had the most involvement, the most back and forth, and kind of, I guess if you want to really think about it, it even had the most vertical accessibility rather than just being horizontal. So I liked it. Was my favorite city of the game, I guess. How did you feel about it?
Yeah, I think I enjoyed Dead City the most.
Yeah.
It was the place that you were in the most, so there was more to interact with. There were definitely some other areas that I think had a similar number of NPCs, Midtown, for example, but it was more linear and to the point, I feel like, in
Yeah.
Midtown. Dead City, it was a lot of exploring, which makes sense because you're still learning what the heck this whole world is.
Yeah, it kind of set up the whole story to open up and actually tell a story.
Mhm.
But I guess that's, you've learned how to play the game generally speaking, and then you start kind of acquiring a little bit more of
Yeah.
everything. More items, more pals, more NPCs, everything.
And right before you meet the NPCs that make up the majority of the world, which are these humanoid bipedal robots.
Love those guys.
I think they all have like a TV screen for a head.
Yeah, I love that they use that as a way to convey emotions too. It's
Mhm.
not just a face. They actually are, I guess, programmed to be able to have some kind of emotion, and it changes. You rub on them, and their face lights up with a heart.
Yeah.
I love it. It's
But
good
right
stuff.
before you meet, them, you meet another robot named B12. It's this little drone that ends up being kind of your secondary character through the whole game, and your kind of intermediary from cat speak to robot speak.
Yeah.
How did you like the introduction of B12?
I feel like it was a good way to kind of segue into actually exploring and interacting more closely with the environment rather than just doing the platforming. He's up in you got the box up there. You see the messages where he's asking, saying he needs a body and stuff like that. And then you're kind of just in this area. You know it's a major point because they tell you you're in. I think it was called the flat, and you're just kind of figuring out everything in there, and then you do the cat thing and knock whatever you can off of a shelf.
A lot of just being a cat.
Yeah.
To accidentally do XYZ, and I really liked that aspect.
Me too. Yeah.
Of this game because there were certain points where I'm playing. I mean, and again, I love this game. There were certain points where it's like, come on, the cat wouldn't have done that, or that's a little loose there, but it was still fun.
Yeah, I mean, the cat might have done that.
It's true.
I don't know, dude. We got cats. They do constantly just doing stupid cat stuff.
They know a lot more than they let on. They're always scheming.
Yeah.
It's always up to something.
Yeah, I'm actually, yeah. I gotta put another note in based on that. There's one part later on where you can trip the robots, dude.
I think I tripped one by accident.
Oh, it's so good, dude. It's so cat. Okay.
So one of the first tasks you're given, your introduction into Dead City, you're mistaken by the locals as a Zerk.
Yeah,
which are these little. How would you describe? They're like these little bugs.
I feel like they're like a parasite, kind of.
Yeah,
yeah.
And I don't remember if it did. I missed it because I played through this twice already. I might have missed what they were there for. I think they're kind of like a mutation of something.
So yeah, there's one of the. I think it's either through a memory or you talk to one of the other robots, the big, like the bipedal ones. You talk to one of the other NPCs, and they explain to you that they were originally created as a way to consume trash to try to cut down on the amount of trash in the city, and then they've evolved somewhat to just eating anything and not really requiring much else. They consume is what they do, which I feel like kind of scary because I feel like that's something that we're going to end up doing one day. They already found some kind of bug or worm that eats styrofoam. I mean,
wow.
Yeah, so that's, I mean, it's the futuristic game for a reason, probably. So, and another thing, they get scared of you. You're an orange cat. The Zerks are also orange, so it makes sense that you would kind of initially.
That does make sense.
Guys. Oh,
I didn't notice that at first.
They thought of everything.
They really have.
Yeah.
But once the fear has kind of subsided, you meet a lovely NPC by the name of Guardian, who's kind of their guardian for things that are coming in.
He's like Gandalf, right?
Yeah, he's got like a big quarterstaff that he wields as kind of a weapon, maybe a walking stick. A little. He has a very superhero stance, very
right.
puffed
Yeah, he does.
chest
Yeah,
out.
he stands like. Yeah, I like that's funny. It's true. He's the guardian.
But through conversations with a couple of the NPCs, they're all kind of leading you, and the game does a really good job of this, through letting you navigate and search and explore whenever you have a task at hand that the game wants you to do, instead of having like a tooltips or a UI that comes up and say, hey, go here, go here. Through conversation, it says, oh, I don't know the answer to your question or the thing you're showing me. Why don't you go talk to so-and-so?
Yeah,
then,
yeah, exactly. Yep.
And then you'll go to the next NPC and they'll say, oh, I wonder if Momo knows about that. They live up on that building there, and they'll kind of like show you. So not everybody's going to give you the same cookie cutter response, but they're all going to give you something similar to get to where you need to go. And the first person past Guardian that you need to talk to is named Momo.
Yeah. And also this is the first area where you kind of open up a little bit more, and you're just not walking in hallways to try to, progress the game. This is also where you get that first side quest for the sheet music.
Yes. Did you end up finding them all?
I did, and I admittedly I figured it was just a side quest that wasn't really going to be relevant. I didn't have any interest in it until I found one that was in a safe. It's right near the music, the guy you give the music to.
Yeah, I found the safe, but I couldn't find the code.
Yeah, so the code, it's in a weird language. Eventually you meet a robot that is very dorky. He helps you out in the game event. He's an NPC he's a part of the main story. Some NPC eventually, like, I remember they referenced to me upon looking at the note and said you'd have to, that language is odd or something like that, and you have to find somebody real dorky that can translate it. I don't think those were the exact words. But then you go to him and he says it's at the bar. Or he says, like, oh, it says this bar. So then that of course tells you go to the bar and do cat stuff, and you knock down a sign or something, and it shows you the code for the safe, and then it's just 8 out of 8. It's the last music sheet that you could get, and when I got that one, I thought, like, oh, I got, like, now I have to do this, because I feel like that was, like, probably the most difficult one to figure out, which I guess maybe it was. Yeah. So I was like, well, I got to go and find the other sheet musics now, because I've already. And I like that it got me to commit to something that I probably would have just skipped over. It was an achievement. It wasn't. You didn't get like anything crazy.
Yeah, I think I maybe got to 6 of them.
Okay. Did you know who to give them to and everything as well?
Yeah. Because I had found a couple on my first playthrough, but I didn't find all of them before on that one either. And I think I found more this time around than I did the first time. Because it had been probably 6 months in between plays.
Yeah. Okay, so that's cool. Yeah, I liked that. And then the other quests that you do are part of the story. You got to meet. You look for and find Doc, Baltazar, and Clementine's flats, and you kind of get clues from that. Bring it back to Momo. And then there's some detergent you gotta find. It's kind of a lot to try to explain, but
yeah, they kind of
the energy drinks and the detergents. And
what I noted, what I could speak to on that is it's kind of a lot of fetch quests, but in a Sorry, my phone just went crazy. It's kind of a lot of fetch quests, but in a good way.
Right.
And there's a couple instances where there's an exchange between the cat and B12 with one of the NPCs, and there needs to be an exchange of some kind, but there's not really any currency, but they'll ask for certain things. Some of them ask for energy drinks that you can find. Yeah, it is really weird. There are a couple, like, what are those called? Vending machines. There are a couple of vending machines throughout the area rather, that you can do cat stuff and accidentally cause one to come out. And there's one for one of the fetch quests, you specifically need this detergent to trade, and you have to find that. You have to do a couple other things to gain access to the room that it's in. So when you break it down to a very simple, simple explanation, it's a lot of fetch quests, a lot of going back and forth, but they beef it up really well with NPC interactions that I think are really, really nice. And there's each one that you talk to, each named NPC has its own personality that they did very, very well.
Yeah, I like going back to the detergent thing. That NPC was great. The one that is running the thing, you knock the paint over, and it's just screaming as a robot. I don't know, man. I just loved I love the dialogue and all the robot noises that they made. I feel like they just had a really good sound team for that specifically. And when that robot was pissed off, it had me laughing, man, just because he's just screaming up at the other robots.
Yeah. And something to point out when you're talking about these different NPCs, it started to make me wonder, especially going through farther into this game. Humans have since what it's implying, humans of all since died off. And B12 makes a couple of comments to this that you go in the bar, but there's like some tables that have food on it, or there's drinks, or there's a little bowl of peanuts or something, things that the robots cannot consume,
There's a robot that's pretending to smoke at some point.
Right. And farther in the game, you talk to some of these, and they're just, and they'll flat out say in some way, shape, or form that they're just continuing what they were programmed to do. Right.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
then when you come back to Dead City, where there's definitely the most kind of the most life that you meet or that you experience, it's kind of hard to tell, is the guy in the laundromat just there because that's what he was programmed to do, or is he actually upset? Like it kind of takes into that, like
Yeah,
which
like why does
which
what's he doing with the laundry?
right
I
which
guess there are clothes, but
which NPCs are stuck in that programming and which have
yeah.
actually broken free from it. And it's really interesting kind of going through not really knowing what the motivations are of the NPCs you interact with. And I thought it was a
Yeah.
really interesting aspect.
Yeah, that's I guess I didn't really think about that, but I guess that's the beauty of a discussion is you kind of two people have different thoughts and interpretations on the game. So, yeah. I guess what were they? I don't know. I guess they were just kind of doing what they were supposed to.
Mhm.
But then some of them obviously became pretty self-aware and wanted a little bit more for themselves, which is kind of what allows the story to progress for you.
Mhm.
Yeah, so you're in the city and you're going through and you meet a bunch of NPCs and eventually the main thing that you're going to need to do is you have to go through the sewers to get to another NPC that they're telling you is going to be able to help you that's already managed to leave. They know they left through the sewers, but there's a lot of these Zerks in there and they say you're going to need there's a type of weapon that I guess Doc had invented.
They were trying to get hold of Doc, who they lost communication with, and there's a couple of quests that you go through to make this happen. But through that, you have to leave Dead City and leave the safety from these Zerks, and the area ends up being called Dead End. And it starts with this little mini game of like running through a horde of Zerks. And let me tell you, the first time I played that a couple months ago, that was one of the hardest sections for me to do. And I think it was because I was using mouse and keyboard and everything was very sensitive. How did that
Right.
go for you?
I don't think the only part with the Zerks that really kind of gave me an issue was the part where I can't I think I don't even remember if it was specifically in this area, but there was a part where there's an elevator, you have to hit the button and wait for it.
Oh, man.
That gave me a lot of trouble for a multitude of reasons. If you have to jump, it slows you down a little bit, so I learned to kind of circle around without jumping and take longer paths. And then there was another thing, the only real glitch I encountered in the game happened after that part. I rode the elevator up and then I walked forward to go to the next area that was safe.
Mhm.
And for some reason, my cat just teleported back down, surrounded by Zerks
Oh,
with the
no.
elevator all the way. So that was the only glitch I encountered in the whole game at all. But the mini game of running, I don't recall it being very tough. But
This time around, it wasn't as bad, but I think that was because I was using a controller and it was
oh
just
yeah,
easier for me to do. But
yeah,
my initial playthrough, when I first found out about this game, that one I think I had to go through like 10 times to finally get it. It was something about the playthrough that was just difficult.
yeah.
But you get through that, and then you
You get,
you
you get a
find
weapon.
you find Doc, and he, through another series of puzzles, because it's a big part of this game, he gives you a special light that you affix to B12 that becomes
Yeah.
like a Zerk popping light. That is colored purple, which I think comes into play later. I don't know if he specifically stated it, but my guess is that it was a UV light. Did you remember it actually specifically saying that?
I don't remember them saying that, but I guess it does make sense because a lot
Mhm.
of UV lights kind of have that hue to it. But they might have said it, and I just don't recall. But I
Well, I'm
know,
I'm I'm going off of the fact that they I'm going to assume they didn't say it. Um, and it was purple, and I say that because B12 itself comes with a light, and this other one was like special, and it made it noticeably different. And I think that comes into play later on. But you get this, you now have a way to defeat these Zerks and kind of move on, which was great. And from there, you revisit briefly, but then leave Dead City again, trying to get to Midtown, so you can find another NPC by the name of Clementine.
yeah,
But going through those sewers, There was a lot of creepy stuff in the bowels of this city. Specifically, there was a point where the walls were like
Oh
fleshy
yeah,
and pulsing. And do you remember that?
yeah. That was that was awful looking, man.
It was very, very like body horror without the bodies. A lot of
Yeah,
fleshy,
so
pulsing,
just horror,
sopping wet skin
breathing
stuff.
walls.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it was real gross. And at some points, there were these large, using the cat as a scale, maybe like 2 foot in diameter eyeballs that were
yeah.
all over the walls.
And earlier we were talking about it, and you said that you think the Zerks had an eye on them. I'd have to see one like see one up close, but maybe that's just how they evolve. If they eat enough, they get bigger like that,
Hmm.
and maybe that's what they become, or maybe I don't know. But it was crazy to me because you're down there, and then out of nowhere, you can kind of just you don't realize you're definitely being watched, and then you know you're in for a bad time, right?
Yes, that was a really stressful area just because it was creepy to some degree, right?
Yeah.
A lot of the sewers, it reminded me of the flood from Halo. Like
Yeah, well,
whenever you had
they kind of do in general, or the
yeah,
head crab things from Half-Life. If you ever played that,
I haven't, but I know what you're talking about.
put it on the
Um,
backlog,
put
dude.
it on the backlog. I think it is on mine. Um,
I'll play. I think it might be two player.
oh, nice.
Sorry for that. Yeah. So, but that's one thing too. I feel like they needed something to kind of increase the fear factor or the feeling of endangerment, because at this point you have a weapon, so you need something to make it feel a little more dangerous. And I think that did a good job because it becomes visually more dangerous.
Hmm.
You have a weapon, you're armed, you know that you can kind of do something to survive these things instead of just running. But then they really increase it because you're going further and further into this nest of Zerks, and you know that you're just getting more surrounded. So that kind of leads into the next part where you end up kind of overdoing it with the light.
Yeah, there's a point where you basically you get to this one bit, and one of those eyes is going from like a maybe a 2 foot in diameter to like 6 to 10 feet, and it's absolutely huge.
Right.
And from there, it kind of gives this like alert pulse or call and calls a bunch of Zerks into you, and you
Yeah.
get surrounded. And B12 does his best by himself in this little cutscene. It was kind of emotional and intense. He overdid it and burned himself out using this new light, saving the cat, but then he kind of went unconscious. So the cat has to like grab him, and then you end the sewers with another mini game of like running through this like sewer area that was another one of those very tense kind of playthroughs or sections.
Yeah. That's a very human thing to do that B12 did there to save you.
It was.
It was just so, it really humanized him.
It really did, which then takes us to a big reveal.
Oh my god.
Seamless. Right when you get out of that section of the sewers, you go into a little internal tower structure that is called Ant Village, and B12, which has another set of inhabitants, and B12 comes back to and kind of reveals through more memories and things after having a near death experience that he thinks he was human at some point. And that kind of reveals more about the story and things that were going on. So this little drone that's been following you around apparently was a human at one time, and his consciousness has been put back into this little drone, and he's kind of finding things out about himself as you play through. After that reveal from B12, there's really not much else in Ant Village. You meet
Yeah, he
one
goes
of
silent for a while
He
too.
does. He's having like an existential crisis, and
Come
you
on,
kind of
man.
have to kind of navigate a good bit of it by yourself. And so he won't translate for you, which is a big part of it. Every time you interact
Right.
with one of the NPCs, he kind of helps
He's
that
like asked
interaction.
for a little more time, kind of.
Yeah. But through that Ant Village, very, very short part of the game, you meet another one of Momo's contacts, which was Zalzabar. What was it?
Zabaltazar, I
Yeah.
guess. They don't. Yeah.
It's very hard pronunciation. You meet them, and they've like connected themselves to like some mainframe. They've like left their their body, and but that whole interaction is just to say, hey, you need to continue on and get up to Midtown to meet your final NPC.
I don't know if it was intentional for the art. Like I called it the art city in my notes. I guess I don't know if it was the ant village. I guess it's kind of ant hill like too, how it just kind of goes down and then trails off a little. But I don't know if it was intentional, but it was a very short segment. I liked the city a lot, but
I think
there was
it was
nothing
in
there.
I think it was in like a trash chute, or like where like waste and things pools together. That's what I think
Okay, yeah.
that's what I think it was built into.
Yeah, and they were like, it was kind of funny because they were just making art, but they didn't seem to have any idea why they were doing it
Yeah.
or why they needed to.
What-
Some of them were just like painting and kind of just discovering. But I guess that's kind of at some point that's what we did too. Not me and you, but maybe
One of
our
the
moms and dads.
Yeah, one of the NPCs is sitting there just painting over and over again, and there's other NPCs nearby, and if you talk to them, they're like, man, I know he likes to paint, but I really wish he would stop painting and maybe do it somewhere else. They were like having interpersonal conflicts that they were
Yeah.
trying. It was very funny.
Yeah, there was another part too where they said earlier, I think it was a memory you could unlock with B12, but they said that the AI originally, all AI was created to make art, which is kind of, I feel like that's the current thing we started going through before everything just exploded, but we were having these AI generated art images very recently in our in our current timeline. And I just thought that was kind of interesting. I don't know if that was put in there before. Like, I don't remember if that game came up with that idea first or if we had the AI art stuff going on before that. But I just thought, again, kind of with the bacteria eating trash, it kind of made me think this is definitely going to happen to us if they make us. If they make us move into like a dark city, I know it's over.
The release of this game and the release of like say Mid-Journey or Chat GPT, which for those listening later, this is roughly about the time that was all happening. The release of this game and those tools are fairly close together, so it's a little interesting just to be a coincidence. But
so did you do any of the side quests? Did you do the flower side quest there?
I tried. I found one of the flowers, but then I couldn't find the other ones.
Was it the one on the tree, like just off of the
Yeah.
map? That's the only one I saw too, but I didn't really go out of my way. I just felt like the city didn't have a lot. I liked the city a lot, but I also felt like it didn't have a ton for me to really stick around for other than that. And since I had previously gotten the last sheet music quest and it was just an achievement, I figured it's probably not very important to the story.
I didn't find it. I looked for a very, very briefly. But as you and I are talking about it in the moment right now, I'm wondering, because I did go and do some cat stuff with a lot of the paint cans.
Yeah.
I am wondering if you can go get that flower a couple times, the purple one, and just paint it.
And just paint it. What do you mean?
Because there were a bunch of paint cans where the guy was where the NPC was kind of expressing his art and just painting over and over again, and it had all those paint cans all around. I don't know if this is the puzzle. I'm wondering if you could go get one of the flowers and just paint it, and the robot that wanted the flowers wouldn't know, because all they were asking for were colored flowers, not types, not like a species of flower, but just a color.
I think he was just trying to, because you know how paints were originally made from plants and stuff like that. I think he was trying to acquire new colors, is what it was. I think he was wanting to expand his arsenal of colors. So I would assume that there would be different colored flowers.
That's what I thought when I initially played through. But thinking back, I think the NPC that was asking for them had like a flower bed and was like planting different plants and things. And how I interpreted it, thinking about it, was they were wanting to add more color to their garden through. And
I assumed it was
flowers.
He was attempting to harvest more. You get the flower and you plant it to grow more, so that way you don't just use what you have. So he would have an unlimited paint supply.
Well, neither of us did it. So if anybody out there listening has done that optional quest, you should let us know what the heck it was.
Yeah, I can't look it up. I don't have.
Nope, don't look it up.
I don't have the The ability.
Don't
Who
do it.
knew we'd talk this much about flowers?
Not me. So after you finally leave Ant Village, this towering little community, you make it to a subway station, and
Yeah.
you're starting to see you're getting higher into this massive city, and you're seeing more of what civilization once was. So you go into a subway station, everything's empty, but then that quickly leads you into the last major inhabited place, which is Midtown.
Yeah. So that kind of opens up, and it's very much a police state. You've got the sentries everywhere. It seems like there's certain sections just blocked off by cops. Your introduction to it, you're watching somebody get arrested and saying that they're looking for this Clementine as well. So you're kind of in a race to find Clementine before the police do, the sentries do.
Mm-hmm. And whereas lower in the city, your main hazard was Zerks, and now it becomes these sentries, which are these. They're kind of like drones, kind of like B-12 is, but they're a little bigger. They've got like electric guns on them, so
Yeah.
they're very dangerous, and they're like helping the NPC police officers. There are parts of this where you actually have to stealth around and navigate around these sentries
Dude,
without getting hit.
it's kind of funny because I was trying to think of a way to were the Zerks or the sentries more of a threat to you?
The Zerks.
Yeah, dude. Okay, the sentry guns, they can chase you and they find you and they attract more. But like imagine trying to shoot a full sprint cat just with a gun in general, man.
Yeah.
So I found myself at some point when I encountered them, I would just sprint. I didn't care if they saw me. I realized pretty quickly that like you can just outrun them and then kind of hide. But I
Yeah.
guess that's kind of a cool way to
You can
got more than one way to play.
you can be spotted by the sentry. This is farther in my notes, but you can be spotted by the sentry, and while still in view, because they have this little light on the ground showing that you've been spotted, while still
Yeah.
in that light, jump in a cardboard box, and you're immediately invisible.
Yeah.
It stops chasing you entirely. I don't know if that was intentional, but it definitely helped me out farther into the area.
That's one thing I've come to realize. Just video games have taught me that cardboard boxes are the ultimate hiding thing. Whether it's Zelda's, the barrels that you're hiding in, or it's cardboard boxes, Metal Gear Solid and Stray. They're a very reliable way to just avoid a lot of problems in life. That actually, another thing too, we were talking about whether or not, like how interactive you could be with the meowing. That would attract the Zerks and the sentries. If you meowed while you're in a cardboard box, they would all rush over to the car. Like they would all come from everywhere and just stay around the cardboard box, kind of freaking out, not sure what was going on with it. But
I think you meowed in this game a lot more than I did.
I told you, I set it up on the turbo controller, man, and I just let it go. I did meow a lot, but I noticed, like I said, I felt like really early on, I kind of saw there was different ways to interact with it. And I liked seeing all the different cat stuff you could do, and I feel like that was a pretty big ticket. So
once you kind of take in what this Midtown area is going to be like, it is that police state. You're on the search for an NPC named Clementine, and you're seeing wanted posters, and you're hearing conversations of the police looking for Clementine. So you're already aware that you're looking for a fugitive.
yeah.
Once you find them, you soon find out that they have a key to the subway. So right there, you're going to have to help this person at some point to get out of this area. But the subway needs power. And to do that, you have to infiltrate this, I think it was NECO, but it's NECO corporation, which has this atomic battery, which is going to be the power source of the subway, so you can then leave, right? So
Right.
the whole Midtown level is trying to, again, do those fetch quests to progress the story to then get to the place you need, and then get the item and get it back to the NPC that you are trying to get it to. So it's a lot of back and forth.
There's one really big thing I think you're kind of forgetting to mention from this area, and it was the dancing robots.
There was, and that's, and you joke, but again, the dancing robots, you have to interact with them as part of the fetch quest. So it was though a joke, it was an actual part that you need to interact with per the story of the game. which was fantastic.
Yeah, they were. I just thought they were like they had a lot of personality for what they were, you know, compared to some of the other characters or the other robots in the game. It was just funny. They're just loitering. They're just generally being like scumbags, kind of. And they the first interaction you have with them, they're like, "Hey, get rid of these security cameras because we're tired of them."
We just want to dance.
Yeah, we just. It's so ridiculous, and then they're just sitting there. They give you a mixtape.
Yep.
Like it's silly, man. But I love that because it progressed the story, but it was also very goofy, and it made these robots a little cuter.
Yeah, talking about personality in the NPCs of Midtown. Midtown NPCs compared to Dead City. Dead City, I
Yeah,
think, had probably 10, 15 interactable NPCs, some more important than others, for
right.
sure. But in some ways interactable and ones that you needed to talk to, for sure. Then you go over to Midtown, I think it was maybe half. There were more NPCs that were like walking around, but none that were as interactable with than Dead City.
Yeah.
Would you
What?
find that true?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I think Dead City was kind of focused on just that they were at the bottom of everything. That's
Hmm.
where all the trash went. They
Yep.
were just kind of waiting, almost like waiting it out kind of vibe. It was
Yeah.
almost like a kind of waiting it out kind of feeling. And then as you go up, the other ones are very focused on themselves and kind of exploring art and what it means to be self-aware, I feel like. And then you've got the ones in Midtown where they're kind of, I don't even know, man, they're just all over the place.
Yeah, it was very much in to my earlier comment about not being able to tell if they were stuck in programming or if they were free thinking. I think it still was a little hard to tell in some points. I think Midtown had more instances of the free thinking because you had
Well, yeah.
you had
Yeah.
that police state, so there was they were protectors of the area and peacekeepers and all that, and there was a sense of like crime
Yeah.
and a more human type
More
things.
rebellious in general.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
So
a lot of the people, a lot of the, I want to call them people, a lot of the robots in Dead City were kind of just, it almost seemed like they were just sitting around waiting to expire or
mhm.
whatever happens to these wonderful robots. But the other ones had, you know, I feel like it was almost a progressive stages of enlightenment. And then when you get to Midtown, it seemed like everybody was pretty rebellious for the most part.
Yeah, that is a really good interpretation of that. I agree with that 100%.
I mean, what are you gonna if you're getting trash dumped on you for
Well,
your
yeah, because
300 years?
I'm
What?
sitting
How
there.
out?
I'm thinking back, and I'm how many NPCs in Dead City were just sitting down,
Yeah,
crisscross
yeah.
applesauce,
With the
blanket
blankets
over
on
their
them.
head, and just kind of
Yeah,
like
just
huddling together, looking like they're huddling for warmth in some
but they're not
places,
cold.
but they're not cold.
Yeah,
And then you progress into Ant Village. A lot more. There are some that are sitting around, but a fraction of that. And then once you get to Midtown, everybody's on their feet. Everybody's doing something, right? They're not
yeah.
just wasting away.
I mean, they are. They are. They just
Well,
maybe they
yeah,
don't know it. But yeah, that was kind of how I interpreted that. I didn't know. I guess I didn't realize it was gonna get so deep, dude.
yeah. I think there were a lot more layers to this game than we maybe had noticed
No, there was
initially.
three. We just went over it. There was Dead City, there was Midtown, and then Ant Village.
That's it.
There was three layers, and then that's it. And it's just a simple story about a cat having a good time. And there's nothing. That's why I liked it. It was straightforward, no underlying messages,
No lessons to learn.
nothing, nothing.
Uh, so so to get this atomic battery, you need to get into this Neko Corp or N Eco Corp, which is again is another puzzle to get through. But you have to use a specific NPC for access called Blazer,
Yeah,
who, after you do all the things you need to do, ends up
that guy, dude.
double crossing
The
you.
guy with the gold chain.
The guy with
Like,
the gold.
what a way to. He's in a big jacket with a gold chain,
He's
man.
in a bomber jacket with a gold chain, and he is
Yep.
creeping in an alleyway. Real scumbag, and he ends
This
up
guy's a real jerk.
he's a real jerk. He ends up double crossing you, and then you go into cat jail, effectively, and this is the almost last area of the game where
Yeah.
you have to like do major puzzles and all that. And you get double crossed. The sentries come in up in Midtown, and then smash cut. You're in a little cage just big enough for your cat to fit in, overhanging some water. Very weird. No B12.
Cats don't like water. Everybody knows that.
I think it was just weird that one, why didn't they kill the animal? That just when you think about like logic of the bad guys or whatever, why didn't they just eliminate the pest in their eyes, right? They
Well,
just,
I think
it was just
I believe so. The way that they were handling any of these robots that were acting up was to basically reset their memory and take away their self-awareness. Can't really do that to a cat. They don't really know what it is, so I think their only solution was to put it in a cage and just that's kind of all they could do.
right.
So,
Yeah, I guess if they're programmed to remove the threat from society, it's not necessarily to eliminate it.
yeah, maybe well there was like always a big thing with like you don't want to harm like robots are not AI and stuff isn't supposed to harm people. That's like the number one thing they program first, right?
Yeah, and that's got a name. It's like
I
the
know.
the Turing test or something.
I think that is it's something like that. Yeah,
And
touring.
yeah, and I believe, I think when you first come into the subway, there's somebody that's got a little sleeping area, I took them as like a homeless person, a homeless
Yeah,
robot,
yeah.
and they had a bunch of books near them. And when B12 goes up and looks at it, it was a book of like something like basics of robotics, and then I think that Turing test was one
Oh,
of
I
those
didn't.
books.
That's cool. Yeah, I didn't see that. That's nice. I was playing on a Steam Deck at that point, so I think my screen might have been a little small to be reading that. Maybe.
So yeah, you're in cat jail, and you've got
Yeah.
to break out. Once you break out of your initial confinement, you find that Clementine has been put in a cell, and you have to get them out. And now it becomes a stealthing game where you don't have to only worry about the cat getting through, which is a lot easier to break out of places than
Yeah,
a
Clement.
6 foot robot.
Yeah.
You then have to take into account their stealth. Not that you're controlling them, but then you have to solve puzzles to let them come through the area. So it ends up being a little more involved, but nonetheless, it's still, puzzles and stealthing.
Yeah, I was pretty stealthy through most of that area right after you rescue B12.
Hmm.
But I think I probably could have just beelined it, grabbed B12, and then ran out because I feel like that's an option. There was an achievement for beating the game in under 2 hours. So I
Really?
feel like, yeah, you could probably just fly right through it. Cat stuff, meow meow.
One thing I did notice in the jail, and I don't know if you noticed it, right after you get Clementine out of their cell, you start walking down one of the hallways, and I noticed that there was a skylight with like clouds and stuff, and that took me a second, and then I noticed that it started glitching. They
Oh,
the prison, this whatever this thing was in the game, had installed fake screens to show outside light.
I did not notice that. That's
And
a
I thought
very
that was
dentist
very,
office thing to do.
yeah. Oh, I've been to so many hospitals that, like, in the older parts of the area, they'll have those like
God.
those fading acrylic,
Yeah.
like painted on clouds and stuff that look god awful. Any hospital administrators that do that for your sites, please stop that. It looks terrible. If you want to fake the outside, just put more windows in. Anyway, side tangent. But yeah, I thought that was interesting. It was a tiny detail that was completely unnecessary to code
This
into
game
this
was full of
game,
that.
but it was
Yeah.
such a good thing to have it in there.
There was a ton of that kind of stuff in this game that I'm sure way more stuff that I didn't know. We've named a lot of things that I noticed and you didn't, and
Mhm.
vice versa. So
There was so much.
yeah,
One thing I did want to talk about and get your interpretation, especially since we've been talking a little bit about like jailing in this world versus
hmm
elimination and all that. We find out, we go through with Clementine, we go past some large window or courtyard area, and we see that B12 has been captured and like suspended in this big cage thing by like these four, because he's very tiny. He's
right.
only the size of like a grapefruit. He's very tiny, right? So but he's in this large like 6 foot by 6 foot by 6 foot box with like force fields holding him in place. I thought that was very interesting. I know why the story did it, because it wants you to get your little NPC back and all that. But do you think it was because he had like human intelligence potentially in his coding or something?
Yeah.
Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'd say that's pretty possible. Maybe it wasn't the same process of wiping his memory that they did with the other robots.
Hmm.
Maybe they were trying to find a use for him, because he was able to translate. He did seem to have knowledge of things.
Hmm.
But I also kind of feel like the Sentinels were very task oriented and not really free thinking at all. But yeah, maybe I don't know. Maybe they just weren't sure how to deal with him either, because I think what he was doing was definitely not part of the normal programming of that model of Sentry or whatever he was.
Right. And if we haven't said it before, B12's, once he started getting some of his memories back, I assume their memories back, his main directive was to get to the outside world.
Yeah.
So for any action that B12 and the cat take is to progress the chance of leaving the city entirely.
Yeah, that was kind of the goal overall. Like, it made sense for you on a small level, but that was kind of the whole goal for all of them.
Right.
Okay, so yeah, you get Clementine and you get your B12 back, and then you get out of that area, out of the jail, and
Yes.
back through the city, and it's kind of just this very Metal Gear Solid-esque escape thing where you're trying to get through the tunnel and run from the sentries chasing you. And then Clementine kind of makes this very human sacrifice of just pulling them away and letting you go, which has kind of been a theme. Everybody's willing to sacrifice some part of everything for you, because and they explain to you the goal again is just to get somebody on the outside, just so even if it's one person needs to get outside. So they give you the keys to the subway, and you kind of have this, just everything is calm down there.
Yeah.
And it feels very, I don't want to say out of place, but it feels very solemn.
But real quick, to backtrack for a moment, just on the game, a little comment I wanted to make. When you're doing your escape, I thought the game did this really well. Transitioning from gameplay to cutscene, a lot of games, it's a very jarring transition.
Yeah.
And there was you could tell that it was a cutscene, and just from
it's like a little camera pan that kind of lets you take over.
But from like the graphical quality from the gameplay, when it switched over to this escaping cutscene, was probably one of the most seamless ones I think I've ever seen. The cutscene was pretty close. It was better, but it was still pretty close to the gameplay.
I feel like we're going to see that more and more in games, because a lot of the time from the games we're used to are disc-based games, and you have that loading. But I think a lot of newer games, they're going to be installed on solid-state drives or something, and they're able to do that kind of stuff more now. And I feel like I hope that kind of becomes the norm, because graphics have also gotten so much better where you don't need to have, these full CGI cutscenes in the same way. This game wasn't full of that at all. Everything was kind of, it was in the same setting that you.
Yeah, I thought they did a really good job with that. It was definitely something to call out as like
I like that.
A thumbs up for them. So yeah, you were saying we get down after that. In Clementine's sacrifice, we already had possession of this battery, but then they give you the keys to the subway, and then from here to the end of the game, it's a lot less chaotic, to the point where you can tell the game is winding down, and a lot of the dangers have been overcome. Yeah,
dissipated. Yeah. And it's very sterile. The area you come up to, it's
right from where you get onto the subway car and get it to turn on, and then continue on. Once you arrive in what they deemed the control room, holy cow! Such a big 180. Everything is clean. Everything is polished. You start seeing there are robots moving around that are still also polished and clean. But one thing that I noticed immediately is the first one you get up to is like sweeping or something, and you introduce yourself and meet this character, and they're no longer, we've met Momo and Guardian and Clementine. They have names. Now we're speaking to Helper 447, and you start to see like this is probably where this AI started. They were just helping. right?
Yeah, they're just keepers of the city, kind of. It makes you wonder if some of the other robots had other program jobs that were like the ones that you meet that actually have a personality. If their personality kind of stems
Mhm.
from a job that they had, at least that makes me wonder. I don't know. That's the kind of stuff I think
Yeah,
about.
and one of them, Helper 211, he was painting,
Oh yeah,
and you could tell that where he was painting, there's this big square that was very discolored, and I think it was one of those cases if he's
he's just
stuck
painting
in
real
this
hard.
code, and he's painting the
Yeah,
same area for who knows how long. I
I
mean,
think
just
they said at some point 300 years since the humans were gone. So
yeah.
yeah,
So
man,
he's
he's
just
just painting
sitting
that
there,
spot.
yeah, going up and down on this one little 2 foot by 2 foot section.
Yeah, even the guy sweeping wasn't really sweeping the whole area. He was kind of just sweeping that spot.
Yeah.
I wonder what kind of energy these things use.
Yeah. So yeah, you get into this. It's kind of like a lobby, like a waiting room, right? There's a lot of seating,
Hmm.
a couple doors to unnamed locations. It looks very like hospital or hotel lobby.
It kind of reminded me of an airport, man.
Yep, that makes much more sense. That I think fits better. And in the at the back of the room, there's this wall to wall, ceiling to floor window overlooking the city, and
Yeah,
which is kind of dark. And you look up, and what you think are stars at first are actually like they're lights on this massive door. Or ceiling door that is covering the city from the outside world because they're in this very, sequential pattern. Some other things to note in this area that I noticed as you start to talk to more people, they start saying, "Oh, if you need help, you should talk to an engineer in the control room." So it's already that dialogue of lightly nudging you to go to this one
yeah,
place.
yeah,
You also see that there's big red signs saying that the city is sealed off. And then in smaller print, if anyone tries to leave, there are heavy penalties. And I believe it either boldly says or implies heavily that you're going to go to prison if you try and leave.
yeah, yeah. And it really becomes evident to see that like the people at some point were definitely trapped in there.
Hmm. Hmm.
And another thing too, it opens up they say it's Walled City 99. I see we both had put that in our notes.
Yeah, yeah, which to me implies that
There's
there
like
were
at
at
least
least
a lot
98
more.
more.
Yeah, at
Yeah.
least maybe
How
even.
how many? Where are we in the world? Is this a version of Earth? I don't know. I assume it is.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, for sure.
It's definitely. I don't think the studio would do it. I think this it might be perceived as trying to like, you know, beat a dead horse or encroach on an already popular game, but they could easily, I think, visit some of these other cities in other games. I don't think they would, but I could definitely see this being a more expansive, potentially expansive world to explore.
It'd be cool. I just want to say, man. I guess this could go at the end, but I hope they make some kind of follow up or expansion, even if it has nothing to do with cats. Just
Mhm.
an expansion on the world in this game because I feel
Yeah.
like there's a
What
lot to it.
what did the world end? Are there any humans remaining? What's the outside world look like? We saw through the cat early on, we see trees and foliage. You can hear birds chirping, right?
Yeah.
So there's life up there, but what's there?
The optimistic part of me wants to say that I think there's probably some people out there because
Hmm.
if they hoarded everybody into a city, if you've learned anything from movies or people in general, there's always going to be a couple people that don't do it.
Hmm.
And those people wouldn't be stationed right around the cities, obviously. That's why you would never see them as the cat prior to ending up in Walled City
Right,
99. So
right.
I would think that there's got to be, unless they somehow, you never know. I don't know if it was with all the trash and stuff like that. I don't know what wiped out people outside of the cities that caused them to
Hmm.
have to go into them. But yeah. So that, yeah,
Yeah.
that's, you do cat stuff.
You
You
do cat
continue.
stuff.
Yeah.
So you have to get in the control room, and it's locked. There's a couple puzzles to get through, and you get in, and basically B12 is almost fully. I think by now has fully remembered his family and
Yeah.
other parts of his life. He's like, hey, we need to get out. We need to continue on. So that's the thing. And he's like, hey, I'm going to start hacking stuff. You go do cat stuff, to the point where he's basically, I'm going to hack, you're going to destroy. He tells the cat to just go screw things up, right?
Yeah, I like that.
And it was great. So that's your whole objective, is just find things you can interact with and rip them to shreds.
And you do that, just that.
And you do just that. And as you're doing that, B12 is hacking stuff. And every time he hacks one successfully, you start seeing, like, he'll, like, his eyes will flicker, and it looks like he's taking damage or something.
Oh yeah, he's even sparking.
Yeah.
Like in between going to different things, he starts sparking.
Once you get the last one,
he finishes it, he survives, everything's fine, and then the game ends, and it's a happy ending, and nothing bad happens.
once he hacks the last one, his drone body is severely damaged.
Oh.
And one of the last things he has to do is kind of like upload himself one last time to unlock the city, but it's going to shred or it's basically going to remove him from that little drone in a permanent way, which the cat has no idea. But as somebody playing it, you know what's coming, and it's like, all right, you've grown to kind of to love this little robot, and you know what's coming, right? And probably the saddest bit is once the drone finally falls to the ground, the cat doesn't know what's going on, right? And he starts pawing at it, and it's not responsive, and just pulling at your heartstrings. The cat curls up next to him and takes a nap.
That's not the ending I had at all, man.
It's not the ending, but it's not the ending. The
No,
cat,
I mean the I'm just kidding, man. Yeah.
you're killing me.
That's not.
So the cat curls up next to him, takes a little nap, and then after that, you wake up and you get to try and navigate away and leave the city. Yeah. And I think it was a really good job of trying to end this. Any comments on the sadness? Did it pull at your heartstrings as it did mine?
It was sad. Yeah, I feel like I saw it coming, for sure, just because it seemed like you could kind of tell he was going to die. It was definitely sad, but it was also cute.
Yeah.
I don't know.
We're going to be wrapping this up in a few seconds here. There's some things I want to call out as the game's ending that I don't want people to gloss over, because you can tell that it's wrapping up, right? The climax has happened. It's definitely winding down. It's not thing happens, credits roll instantly. It gives you a moment to kind of play through the ending of actually leaving the city in a bit of a subtle way, but I think it was really nice. First thing, right when you get control after waking up from your little moment with B12, go to the window and you can watch this massive door open and flood sunlight into the city. And as that happens, it kind of goes to another cutscene where it kind of revisits most of the cast that you've met through your journey. And I thought it did a really good job. You see the people in the slums and parts of Midtown that are seeing sunlight for the first time, which was just so nice to call back to some of those characters you've since left. And you also start to see Zerks that are deep in the slums and the bowels of the city that start popping and being destroyed from the sunlight, which makes me think that Doc's gun from early on in the game was emitting UV light, because that's what the sunlight's doing. And I thought it was a really good loop to close on that part of the game.
So when I was looking at your notes, I saw the part about that with the Zerks popping and stuff. I don't remember that happening, but now that you're talking about it for this a little more, I actually I don't remember any of that. Was that actually in the credit scene or what?
It was
like Marvel movie style. Like,
I think I've mentioned it slightly out of order. But basically, when B12 connects himself into the city's mainframe, once he does the thing to unlock, before he I think he falls to the ground, and then the cutscene starts.
Yeah.
So after the cutscene, then the cat interacts with B12, realizing that it's now lifeless. That cutscene is already concluded.
Dude, I'm not kidding, man. The robots looking up and seeing all that,
Yeah.
I never got any of that. So
Oh no.
I'm gonna have to watch that
It
on
was
YouTube or
such
play
a
through that part
good.
again.
I mean, I don't know if it's skippable. You know, sometimes you can skip cutscenes. I don't know if that's the case. Maybe a button got hit or something. But how it came across in the screen, how the Steam version played it through, it had that little cutscene that I just thought really tied what experience you played through already, and kind of calling back on that in these brief cutscenes. I thought was really a really nice finishing touch.
Okay,
But then after that, you get a chance to watch the door open, and it was really nice.
yeah, I'm watching a YouTube video of it, and I swear, man, I don't recall any of this
That's a
happening,
shame.
which is
That's a
really weird
shame.
because I remember him laying down with B12 and B12 dying, but I didn't see the Zerks popping. I don't know what happened or why I wouldn't have seen it, but
Hmm.
this is history right now. This is the first time I've seen it watching it on YouTube. Yeah, that's cool. I
So
like that you kind
so
of yeah.
so did it let you walk out the front door and walk into the sunlight? Did it at least let you do that?
No, I don't. That's so weird to
Dude.
me. What
So
happened for my game was you watch it opening and you can kind of walk around in that room again, and that's all I got. I don't think there was like a part I missed or anything like that.
yeah,
You know.
so after you get control, after the cutscene, and you wake up from your little cat nap, you can go back into the airport lobby. All the robots are doing the same thing. The only thing that's changed is all the signs that said "City Sealed" now say "City Open,"
Yeah, and that's what I did.
and
Yeah. Oh, yeah,
and you
yeah,
can
yeah.
yeah, and you can go up to that big orange door.
Mm-hmm.
It opens up into a very similar scene to when you first start the game, where you started in like a little sewer, but now you're leaving in like a stairwell,
Okay, yeah, I saw that part. Yeah.
but very overgrown. And as you walk towards the sunlight, the camera slowly pans out, and you get to walk your cat away in a very satisfying ending, I thought.
Yeah.
And that's it. And
I don't know
that
why
is
the
the game.
heck. I don't know why I didn't get to see that part. I do know that I don't think this would have anything to do with it, but I was playing on my Steam Deck, and I know that it was my Steam Deck was almost dead.
Hmm.
But I don't think I would have like what kind of what would it say about me to skip the last real scene of the game? I don't know.
Yeah.
So that's cool. Yeah, I just watched it, and it's nice ending. It was a good
It's
ending.
such a good ending, man. I can be pretty harsh with media, the endings in certain forms of media. Usually, I'm pretty lax about it, but this one I really, really liked. I like how it ended the game.
Well, I did too. Now that I can say, I can
Now
definitely.
that you
But
now that
I
you saw
liked
it.
it without even seeing that scene. I would have said it was still a really good ending. But
Mhm.
it's crazy to me that I must somehow didn't see that. I don't know. I don't know why.
So, did you have any other thoughts? Anything we missed?
I wanted to. I kind of wanted to. Yeah, there's a few things. I just wanted to say I really like the music. I feel like we didn't talk much about it, but all of the music in the game was fantastic. I really liked, especially some of the weird tracks that you could get the guy to play.
Some of them were interesting.
Yeah, well, yeah. I also really liked the music in the club that you go into, which is also very weird that there's like drinks and stuff in the club.
Hmm.
But the music that was in there was cool. I feel like the music team did a phenomenal job with the game. These people that made it obviously really liked cats because every little thing you do that's cat-like was very intentional and very well done. There was even a paper bag you could get stuck on your head at least two places in the game,
Yep.
and it
Yep.
changes the direction of the controls I think you have to run into a wall or something to get it off. But I thought that was cool.
Oh, that's funny. I don't think I ever interacted with the bag. I saw them and I'm like, nah, that's probably something I don't want to mess with.
Yeah, that's something a cat would do. It's just in there strictly just to appease the player. You know, it's not in there that didn't serve a purpose.
Right.
But it was intentional, but it wasn't essential to the story. And then one thing I wanted to say, there was 3 save slots in the game when you go to load in and
Hmm.
you create a save. There were 3 of them, and there was also 3 cities. So I think ideally maybe you could leave a save in each city to go back and kind of complete each one of those things if you had a little bit of foresight on that,
Yeah,
or if you did a second playthrough.
the energy drinks. There was the first guy, the first
Yeah.
merchant, you'll call them, that wants stuff. There's like a covered up. I
Yeah,
assumed it was
well, I don't know what it
painting.
was. I have
Yeah,
no
but
idea.
you had to get like 3 of them, and I think I
Couldn't
only
find.
ever
I found
found
2.
I found 2. So I wonder if there's like maybe in Midtown or somewhere else, maybe there's like a hidden one or
I
something,
don't know.
and you
I don't
could
know
come
that you could
back
go
to them.
back. I
I
don't
don't
know.
know.
I feel like you can't probably, but I could be wrong. But I
Yeah.
got the impression that it was very final. But it would be cool to know if you could go back and maybe go hang out with Seamus again
Right.
or Clementine. But
Yeah, I don't know how
yeah.
much replayability there are. I mean, unless you're trying to do achievements and things, which I gotta be in the mood for achievements. Like if I get one, it's like, oh, cool, that was interesting, but I don't seek them out typically.
I like achievements, getting them unexpectedly and seeing it. And
Mhm.
but I'm not the kind of guy that loads up a game and looks through the achievements and says like, yeah, I need to make sure put aside time for that.
Right,
But
right.
that's also, I'm a guy with 500 something games in a backlog too, so I don't have time for that. I gotta eat at some point.
What else? We got anything else?
So this was the studio that made this. I guess this is, as far as I know, this was kind of their first big successful game. I can't wait to see what other games they come out with now, because I think it's kind of a big break and they have a very good style. So I want to see whether they come up with another game that takes place in the same universe or anything. I feel pretty confident that they would do a good job. I did see there's a couple games that they came out with prior to this, so they might slip into the backlog at some point.
Oh yeah.
But there was one in particular. It's dinosaurs, and I don't want. That's obviously not what we're talking about here. But they have a couple other games, and there's some that are going to come out that I'm interested in now, just because I was very blown away by the studio. So I think that's kind of it to summarize the whole story and everything. I liked
Yeah.
it. Did you hated it, right?
Oh, it was the worst thing in the world. Don't ever play it. No,
Yeah.
I
Thanks, guys.
thanks. I loved this game. Like truly. I've played it now through and through twice. And the first playthrough did not detract me from my second playthrough.
Right.
Like I don't play games multiple times very often, but sometimes you can get that feeling of like, oh, it's this thing, I gotta do it again. And
Right.
and
I
I
don't think.
didn't
Yeah.
get that. It was still enjoyable, and I think that's because even though there are big portions of this that are linear, you can to some extent you can do things in the order you want to do them.
Yeah.
What I mean by that is like going back to Dead City for a minute, getting the detergent. You don't have to get the game's queue to obtain that item. You could.
Right.
I happen to know I had to go there, so I triggered the event to let that room be accessible, and I
Right.
got it ahead of time. Now, yes, I did that because of my first playthrough, but even if I didn't know about it and I just stumbled across it, it's still letting you pick up items and pick up things that you'll need later on in whatever order you want to pick them up in. And I thought that was a really nice, it was a good feature of the game that let me play it without having an issue playing it a previous time.
Yeah, you can alter the pacing of it. Like I said,
Yeah,
you can either sneak past the sentries, or if you're really trying to get through it, you can really just sprint past all of them, I think. And that will allow you to get through the game and explore the next areas a lot faster, rather than, creeping through them to get caught up to the third city if you wanted to explore it a little bit more
right.
and see what it had to offer. So it's good. I like that there's options to fast pace through it without putting fast travel in. It's not a very long game, but it can be shorter if you need it to, and that's
Right,
great.
right.
Good.
No, I definitely liked that we were able to get this off of the backlog and make room for more. It was real good. I thoroughly enjoyed it. If you haven't played it, go play it. It's fantastic.
It is. Yeah, it's a good game. Steam, overwhelmingly positive, 100,000 plus reviews. It's got a cat in it. If you like cats, if you don't even like, I don't know why you'd be listening to this podcast, but if you don't even really like video games, but you like cats, or you know somebody that does, like, comment, subscribe. No, if you know someone that likes cats, I think they would enjoy this game. Just interacting with it. I bet someone's grandma would love this game. Probably, maybe. I don't know.
It really is. I mean, from the gameplay itself to the visuals and atmosphere that you get from it, like the level design and all that, it's 10 out of 10 for me.
Okay, well, I would give it a I don't know. I don't know if I can really rate it. I would say overwhelmingly positive. It was a good game. I don't know if I can place a number on it because I don't know what 10 out of 10 goes, but I feel like they did it's a good game. It gets a thumbs up from me.
Big old thumbs up. I think it's going to wrap it up. But just like our Aladdin episode, we need to announce what we're playing for the next two games.
Yep, the next two games are going to be Ori and the Blind Forest. I'm going to play the definitive edition. That is admittedly a game that I've added to my backlog since we started the podcast, which, very unproductive of me. But it looks phenomenal. I think it's going to be a very good game. And then we're also going to do BioShock, which somehow neither of us have played. I know it's a staple game, and it's a big game. So I'm really looking forward to that. I think, is it safe to say we're going to play Ori first? That'll be the next episode?
Yeah, we're going to play Ori first. We've been doing a good mix of platforming games and non-platforming games, so we're going to get that split in the episodes. Ori and the Blind Forest, I was going to play this a couple years ago when it came out, and for one reason or another, it just kind of slipped away. And BioShock, I actually played for about however long it takes you to hit start, and then you step out of the capsule when there's a blood-curdling scream.
And that was enough for you.
And that was enough, because I'm not a big horror fan, so when that happened, I'm like, I'm good. And I put it down.
There's no excuses now, okay?
No excuses. I'm gonna have to do it. I'm older, I'm wiser, and
it's on paper. You have no choice. If you change this, you're not editing that out.
Nope, can't do it.
Okay.
So yeah, I think that's it. Thanks, guys.
Thank you for listening, guys.
Thanks so much for listening. That wraps up our discussion on Stray. If you enjoyed this episode, please let us know with a thumbs up, a comment, or sharing with your friends and family. If you're able to do so, play along with us. We'll post upcoming games to our socials and what games are up next at the end of each episode. This has been 321 Backlog by Alec L. and James T. Our show music is Lift Off by Amy Waters. You can find this song and more of their work at amywaters.bandcamp.com. You can connect with us on any of our social media pages and by sending us an email at 321backlog@gmail.com. Until next time.